continue to serve this country in incredibly difficult circumstances. I want to follow up on something that Senator Shaheen was asking about, and also Senator Portman. I want you to describe the information environment as you understand it in Russia. I guess the most basic question is, do you think the Russian people know that they are losing?
Senator, thank you. My impression is that there are certainly Russians who have sought out access to outside sources of information to be able to more accurately gauge what is happening in terms of Russia's war on Ukraine. But when you look at the polling that takes place inside of Russia, and I think some of it's pretty good and pretty credible, there are still many Russians who, because of the years of propaganda, are still persuaded that this is a just cause, although the rationales keep changing.
And whatever mistakes that may have been made are tactical or a general's fault or about equipping and training and not a sort of major strategic error. So I want to talk to you about the way I see it as two vectors, right? One is years of propaganda and culture and media channels that are organized around Putin. And the other is increasingly that they want to control the inputs, right? They actually do want to restrict access to truthful information. Freedom House already described Russia as not free in terms of information, but also noted that there was the biggest decline in 2022 in terms of the ability to access truthful information. I'm just sort of wondering how you think those two factors are interacting right now, because I don't want to get overly fixated on making sure people have access to truthful information if in the end the problem is the propaganda that overwhelms anyway. China has the ability to actually control all information and have the Great Firewall. Russia doesn't have that capability. They would like to, but I'm not sure they need it. And I'm wondering how you see those, and also how you see the Department of State being useful in this conversation to make sure that the Russian people know that this is going badly.
Senator, thank you. I think one of the ways in which we are helping both in terms of keeping alive some of the credible independent voices of media is through some support that the State Department has been providing. And I think that is very important, because these are journalists who understand the challenges in the Russian media space and the mindset. And I think having that kind of support to homegrown journalists, I've seen this elsewhere in my career. People can smell cooked up storylines, but when you have people who understand the mindset, who are local, they're probably best placed to provide that kind of entry point into getting at sometimes these narratives of misinformation and disinformation. So that's one. I think that's one way that we need to continue to be very active and engaged, is to be supporting media, Russian media who are in opposition and in exile, to be able to project. But it's a very tough environment. But I don't think that we can afford to walk away from championing internet freedom of making sure that people have access. So I don't know if that totally.
No, I agree, and I think this is a tough nut to crack. It just seems to me that we have to understand the information environment as it's evolving pretty fast, because it was ever thus as it relates to the propaganda channels, but this new desire to control truthful information presents additional complications, and I think the State Department is going to have some navigating to do. But before you start just jumping in and tweeting out things or whatever, we have to have a theory of the case about what exactly is going on here and why Russian public opinion remains pretty stubborn, even in the face of at least accessible facts. They may not have them in their brains, but it's theoretically accessible via computer in a way that it's not, for instance, in China. So thank you.
Senator, I promise I won't just jump in and start tweeting.
That's my job.
And you do it so well.